All right, so today we're going to talk about Kant's Metaphysics of Morals. He is our first major ethical theorist of the course or of the semester, and so he wrote a much larger work called The Groundwork for the Metaphysics of Morals, and you had read just a little bit of that in your Doing Ethics book. So just some background information, right? I'm just going to talk about a little background information and the reasoning behind his theory, and then we're going to talk about his theory itself. So, Kant was a German philosopher. He lived from 1724 to 1804, and he felt as if the morality or the ethical codes of his day were a little too wishy washy. He felt like they were very arbitrary, and he discusses this in the preface, right? So, he talks about how we as human beings are subject to so many inclinations, so many contrasting and conflicting feelings and emotions, and they typically don't cohere with or agree with our rationality or our conscience or our religion if we have one. And so he felt as if we need something consistent and absolute and objective to follow when it comes to morality, because we are swayed in so many different directions as human beings. It gets confusing, it gets frustrating, right? It gets stressful to figure out what the right thing is to do. So in the preface, he establishes why we need something universal and objective and absolute. And this is what the moral law is. So the moral law is something that we as human beings need to follow consistently in an absolute way, in an unchanging way, meaning that it's something that transcends or goes beyond the culture or the time that we're living in. So it's something that we can follow regardless of the situation or the context we're in, right? It's not something that is relative to the situation or the culture, like cultural relativism, or it's not subjective to the individual, right? It's something that we all as human beings must follow in order to be good or decent human beings. And the implication or the consequence of this is that what we do needs to be done for the sake of the moral law when it comes to our behavior. So what we do shouldn't randomly coincide with the moral law. What we should do must be done for the sake of the moral law, right? Because that means we're doing something with those good intentions. And this gets to the concept of the goodwill. Now, what is goodwill? Well, let's break this term down, right? What is will? It's a volition, it's a want, it's something that we do, it's something that we intend on doing. We know why we're doing it. But it's not enough to just will ourselves to do something, because our emotions can get in the way. So our will must be guided by something good. It must be guided by something benevolent, right? It must be done for the right reason. Now, everyone has talents, right? We can be intelligent, we can be creative, we can be clever, we can be witty. But these talents need to be guided by goodness in order for them to be used for our benefit, in order for them to be used to do the right thing. So Kant has this definition of goodness, which is here on the handout, right? And I'm just going to highlight here so you can see what I'm talking about. But what is goodness? So he talks about how the moral worth of the character is brought out, which is incomparably the highest of all, namely that he is beneficent, not from inclination, but from duty. Thus, the moral worth of an action does not lie in the effect expected from it, nor in any principle of action which requires to borrow its motive from this expected effect. All right, so what is he saying in English? So what makes something good is what he's referring to when he says the moral worth of the character, right? The moral worth of an action, what makes an action good or valuable. And so it's not the consequence that leads an action to have moral worth. It's the intention. It's why we're doing it. And so he says that just feeling like doing something does not give an action moral worth. We must do something because we have that obligation or duty to do it, right? So that is what makes an action morally worthy, right? Doing it for the sake of duty, right? The sense of obligation, the sense of I should or I ought. And we're not just assessing the consequences. So oftentimes people do something that has positive consequences, but they could do it for the wrong reasons. And a stereotypical example I like to give is, think about the most annoying celebrity, right? There's a lot of annoying celebrities out there. Think about one who you think is very focused on their image, which is a lot of celebrities, but many celebrities can do nice things, right? They could volunteer, they can donate, but are they doing it for the right reasons? Are they doing it because they truly want to help that community or that cause, or are they doing it because they just want more fame and they just want people to think they're good and nice? because oftentimes, sometimes people do the right thing, but they do it for the wrong reasons. So that's why for Kantian theory, we're understanding the intention of the action, not just the effect, not just the consequences, but why we do what we do. And so, how do we understand why we do what we do? Well, as human beings, our faculty of reason, right? So, faculty meaning just something that we all contain as human beings, following this faculty, following this thing that we have within us, allows us to do the right thing. And so reason is not just this complex faculty that we use for understanding calculus or physics or philosophy, right? Reason is a practical faculty. It's a practical ability that we have, and it helps us navigate our daily existence, right? It helps us understand how to communicate with people. It helps us know how to drive. It helps us to know how to walk, right? When we're just walking on the street and we're not trying to walk into things. It helps us tie our shoes. It helps us just with our daily actions. And so reason is what we should be listening to when it comes to making our moral decisions, right? We should not be listening to our inclination or our feelings. We should be listening to what reason says. And if our will is dictated by reason, then we will be doing the right action. We will be doing the good action. So we as human beings should aim to act out of reason rather than inclination, or we should aim to act out of duty rather than inclination, right? So these are the concepts I wanted to establish before we get into kind of the heart of Kant's categorical imperative.